This is the Louie Tee Network.
Hey, yo. Who else could it be? Me, your me, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2017 NFL Draft. We're talking linebackers, and this is a guy that is extremely versatile, and I love what this guy brings to the table. I'm excited for the prospects of what this guy can be at the next level in the National Football League. I'm talking about Temple linebacker Haason Reddick. Let's talk about this man's journey to where he is now and why I think he can be a first-round pick and a big help to someone year one in the National Football League. Let's talk Haason Reddick and his pros. So you start with Haason Reddick's size as his first pro, 6'1", 237 pounds, in a day and age where linebackers are getting smaller and smaller and faster. It's nice to see a guy, refreshing to see a guy still growing, gaining weight, being physical, but still possessing the athleticism necessary to excel at the position. 237 pounds, basically pushing 240, still running almost a sub 4.5 40, speaks volumes. These types of guys aren't walking around in abundance in the NFL. And so I think that right there in itself, that size coupled with the athleticism that I'm about to mention as his next pro, makes this guy a hot commodity in the first round of the NFL draft. 4'5", 240, 36.5-inch vert, and an 11-1 broad jump is the next pro. Athleticism is the next pro for Haason Reddick. This is a guy that is uber athletic. We saw it at the combine. I saw him last year. I watched a bunch of Temple tape. They had a ton of guys drafted last year. Tavon Young, cornerback, drafted by the Ravens. Matt Ioannidis, drafted by the Redskins at defensive tackle. Tyler Medikevich, drafted in the 7th round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had a number of guys on the defensive side of the football. So I ran into Haason Reddick watching all of those guys. So I was already exposed to what this guy was as a football player, and he only got better in 2016. And so his athleticism is big time. And I talked about how the combination of his size and that athleticism helps him stand out. He was outstanding at the combine. You watch him on tape, you see the athleticism on tape, and so it translates to the field. I think that's one of the reasons why he stands out in a crowd of linebackers in this draft. Range is the next pro. I watched him on tape flying around. I'm watching him against Memphis, and he is everywhere in this game. He's sideline to sideline. He's in the backfield. He's sacking the quarterback. He's throwing running backs around like rag dolls. He's making play after play after play. He was everywhere in that football game. And for a guy that was 3rd in the nation in tackles for loss, those are the types of games you're going to see from them. And I was very impressed, and his range was on full display in that ball game. And it just allows you to see just how dangerous this guy could be at the next level if put in positions to succeed. Fluidity in space and redirect. I talked about this with Reuben Foster, how we don't talk enough about fluidity in space for linebackers. You got to be fluid. If you're going to be elite in this league, you have to be comfortable being out in space. You have to be fluid being out in space because you're going to be out in space a lot. You're going to be asked to make tackles one-on-one against running backs, against tight ends, against receivers oftentimes, slot guys. You're going to be asked to do things out in space like run with a tight end, run with a running back, run with a potential slot receiver that may cross your face in a zone concept where you're zone matching. You have to be fluid and comfortable out in space. Haason Reddick is that. He redirects well, stops, plants, pivots, turns, changes direction, no problems. This is a guy that played running back in high school, was a safety in high school, came to Temple as a walk-on, as a safety, bulked up, put on weight, played defensive end and linebacker. So this guy has experience at all three levels of the football field. You don't think that makes a difference? You're fooling yourself. We're going to talk about that versatility a little bit later on. But bottom line is this guy is very fluid in space. He redirects well. And I'll tell you something else. He does a tremendous job of being a crevice squeezer. And what I mean by that is he gets through the tiniest crack at the line of scrimmage and makes plays. And that's something that can't be understated either. A guy that can find a way on a twist, from the outside, he stunts inside and he comes in and there's the smallest little crack between the defensive tackle and the guard, and he just squeezes in between that, and he's in the backfield and he's making a play, and he does a great job of turning skinny and getting to the ball carrier, or at least blowing up the play and harassing the snap and making it tough on the offense to have a clean go of it. So does a lot of good things. Coverage ability. I just talked about him being fluid out in space and being able to redirect. So his coverage ability, I just told you he was an ex-safety. So this guy is comfortable out in space. I love linebackers who used to be safeties. A guy that comes to mind, Alec Ogletree, that was at Georgia, that was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams, St. Louis at the time when they made the pick. A guy that came into the league and was an excellent coverage linebacker because he was an ex-safety. When you have that ability to be a safety and see the field differently and be fluid out in space, it makes that transition to linebacker all the more easier. So I love the fact that this guy used to be a running back, which means he's comfortable with the whole shake kind of concept, knowing what's going to occur. And he's also an ex-safety, which means he's comfortable out in space as a defender. Pass rushing ability. This is something that he kind of still is a work in progress at. Another one of these guys that just wins with athleticism, still really doesn't know what he's doing as a pass rusher, but you can put him at defensive end, or you can have him rush as an outside linebacker on third downs and nickel sets. And I think he'll be successful at that. I think there's some more work he can do as a pass rusher, but that ability is there. You don't get 10.5 sacks without being able to get to the quarterback. Now, again, some of that is just athleticism, beating guys, running twists and stunts. Some of this is manufactured pressure and sacks, but nonetheless, this is a guy that can get to the quarterback. So that lends us to the next pro, blitzing. I think he does a great job of blitzing. This guy lined up everywhere. He's got blitzing capabilities, and we'll talk about his versatility here in a second, but this is a guy that lined up at end, hand in the dirt, and standing up, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, you named it, he did it on defense for Temple, and he was everywhere. Line of scrimmage violator is the next pro. This guy is just a habitual line stepper, if you will. He crosses that line of scrimmage and makes plays on the opposite side of it. 22.5 tackles for loss, third in the nation. I said that earlier. I reiterated again. This guy is always on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage, making things happen, blowing plays up. And even when he doesn't make the tackle, he's allowing someone else to come in and clean up the mess that he started. So he's definitely a line of scrimmage violator and a guy that is very aggressive around the line of scrimmage. Talked about that with a guy like Tack McKinley, who had 18.5 tackles for loss. You want guys who are aggressive around the line of scrimmage. When you're aggressive around the line of scrimmage, good things generally happen for the defense. And finally, versatility. We talked about him being an ex-running back, an ex-safety, a guy that walked on at Temple because he dealt with some injuries in high school, wasn't recruited, wasn't highly sought after, walked on at Temple as a safety, morphed into a defensive end, and ultimately somewhat of a hybrid linebacker. This is a guy that is just uber versatile, period. Okay, he can give you a little something at various positions, and that's good, but also there's a gift and a curse with that, which we'll talk about here in a second. Speaking of which, those are all the things I love about Haason Reddick in his game. Now let's talk about some of the cons that I think are things that are going to have some people questioning whether he should be a top linebacker off the board in an early round draft pick. So you look at Haason Reddick and you start with his cons, and the first one I want to talk about is he's not natural at any position. I talked about him making the conversion from safety to linebacker to defensive end. He's not natural at defensive end, and I don't think he's going to play defensive end or outside linebacker for that matter for any team. He's not big enough, and I don't think you would be benefited by asking him to put on weight because that may take away from some of the athleticism that allowed him to excel at Temple. And so I think the natural progression for him is to go inside to linebacker where he can roam free. You keep this guy clean, he's going to be an asset for you. And but the problem there is he's not a natural inside linebacker. He hasn't done that for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. He hasn't been groomed to be an inside linebacker for his entire playing career. So that's something he's going to have to learn to do on a consistent basis, but it doesn't mean he can't excel at it. It just means that he's not going to walk into your facility ready to go as a finished product at inside linebacker or at outside linebacker if you decide to have him do that. So this is a guy that isn't natural at any one position right now. But again, sky's the limit for how talented this guy is and how good he can be at the next level. Missed tackles. This was something that was a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. He would blow things up. He would get in the backfield. He'd be aggressive around the line of scrimmage. I talked about 22 and a half tackles for loss. It could have been more. He could have had 25. He could have had 27 just off the games that I watched. I thought that there were opportunities for him to make more plays in the backfield, and he just missed. He would grab a guy and he would sling, and the guy would keep running, and he's so aggressive. He's coming at 110 miles an hour that a lot of times when guys stop or they keep running, you can just fall off when you're running that fast if you don't have a firm grip. There were times where he would just fall off of guys. But again, it was his pressure. It was him getting in the backfield and blowing the play up that allowed a teammate to come clean it up and make a play. So there are missed tackles there. I'd love to see him wrap up and be a little bit more efficient as a tackler. But nonetheless, he's aggressive. He's around the football. And so he does make plays. He can be swallowed up by offensive linemen. Again, I think, and I already alluded to this, he needs to be kept clean. But then again, what are you saying? That's most linebackers in the National Football League. Luke Kuechly isn't as effective if he's not kept clean. That's an understatement. You want your linebackers to be clean. You want the guys up front to do their job, keep these guys clean. But that being said, as an outside linebacker, which is why I don't think he necessarily transitions well and translates well at the next level as an outside linebacker, is because I don't think he does a great job of disengaging from offensive linemen. If you, at 237 pounds, hard for you to set a physical edge and be able to stack and shed a 313-pound guy when you're 237 pounds. It's just not likely. And I don't think he is best served putting on 12 pounds and getting to 250, because then it takes away from the athleticism that I think makes him dynamic. So I think he is better served moving inside to linebacker and making that his new permanent home, and not so much jump around and be doing 20 different things. I think you can still ask this guy on third downs to shift down as a rusher for you. No problems asked, you know what I mean? Or no questions asked, I should say. And I don't think that'd be a problem for him. But also, he can also drop into coverage and be a nickel linebacker as well. So there's a number of things you can do with him. But again, in the run game, he can be a liability if he is blocked by an offensive lineman. So got to keep him clean, plain and simple. But then again, what am I saying? Same can be said for Reuben Foster. Same can be said for just about any linebacker in the league. Got to keep these guys clean. And finally, there was a 2015 nightclub incident with him and another member of the Temple football team. They got into an altercation outside of a nightclub, reportedly. No charges were filed. They didn't get suspended, but it was hanging over their head for a little bit, him and the tackle that went to Temple that's going to be drafted in the 2017 NFL draft, coincidentally. So that's just something you don't want to see that kind of thing happen again with a guy that you could potentially be spending the first round pick on. So again, that's one of those situations you just sit down, ask him what the hell happened, and you just want reassurance from him that he learned from that experience and he won't be doomed to repeating his past. So that's Haason Reddick in a nutshell. I think this guy's going to be a first round pick. I think he's a first round talent all day long. We'll see what happens. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network. Got more breakdowns for you. I will see you later. Have a good one.